Thank you so much for being here. For those that have just arrived, please put in the chat your name, pronouns, and a reason that you are looking forward to this session. Monet, I will kick it off to you to get us started.
Hey guys, welcome to Master the Texas Ledge. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Monet Woodhouse. My pronouns are she, her, they, and I'm really looking forward to this. Presentation.
Hi guys, you can't see me anymore because now I am your host, but my name is Andrea. I am the political director with Deeds, and I am very excited. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am very excited to be online on Zoom with you guys, building community. I will pass it on to Edith.
Hi everyone, my name is Edith. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm the art director at Deeds Not Words. And yeah, I'm just really excited to have y'all all here. Thank you so much for being here.
So as we're getting started, we do want to take a minute of silence for one of our chapter members at Huston Tillotson University, our beloved Natalia Monet Cox. We mourn with her family and continue to honor her legacy through the work that we're doing. So if you don't mind, we're going to take one moment of silence for her passing. Thank you for joining us in that moment of silence. I will pass it on to Monet to lead us through this online experience.
All right, so I think we're going to just have a couple of chances to share. I'm going to start. My name is Monet Woodhouse, and my pronouns are she, her, they. I'm from the UTEP chapter in El Paso, Texas. And the major experience that really shaped me and got me into advocacy was my divorce. Through it, I really woke up and realized I was in an abusive relationship emotionally. And part of sex ed, comprehensive sex ed, which is one of the things we advocate for, is that you do learn about healthy relationships. And I know for a fact that I could have benefited from that in my past. And so that was probably the biggest reason that really got me into advocacy. If anybody else would like to share.
Everyone else, if you don't mind putting the things in the chat, feel free to come off mute if you feel so inclined to share.
I can share. Hi, everyone. I'm Jocelyn. I'm a campus organizer at Texas State University. I think my advocacy was influenced by my experience in school, just going to school in a predominantly white, wealthy area when I didn't come from that neighborhood, kind of showed me the inequities and just the kind of lack of balance between my life and the lives of others, even when it came to basic things like being able to afford a tutor, who has certain resources and who doesn't, and kind of diving deep into that in my own way through my education. I think that's influenced my drive to be an advocate, especially when it comes to education, access to higher education as well in my personal life. Just trying to, be the advocate that I wanted when I was a high school student as well.
Thank you, Jocelyn, for sharing. Anybody else?
I'll piggyback off of Jocelyn. Hi, everybody. I'm a campus organizer at Prairie View A&M, And I also had similar experiences. I grew up in a predominantly white and wealthy area, and I now attend Prairie View, which is an HBCU. And so I saw major disparities in like pretty much every aspect of life, but especially voting and how that has an impact on a lot of other access to like social, I don't know, like social like implications and policies. And so I've been inspired to become an advocate so that other people of color and women have access to those resources that we don't currently have access to.
Thank you, Amori. I think we have time for maybe one more if somebody does want to share.
I can go. My name is Carla, she, her pronouns. Brief content warning if anyone wants to like mute me for 20 seconds, step away from the computer or whatever, but I was inspired to become an advocate from personal reasons. My aunt, she's from Romania. She died getting an unsafe abortion because abortion was heavily regulated and illegal in Romania. And I think that just showed me like what the real material consequences look like for people who don't have access to abortion and so many of the other issues that DEEP advocates for. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much for sharing, Carla. I think we can go ahead and move forward, but throughout the presentation, if you feel inclined to, you can feel free, or as things shift or things come up, you can feel free to put them in the chat as well. So before we get started, I want to just talk a little bit about what we have accomplished since last session and going into this session. And so I'm very excited to mention that we had more than 100 advocates trained in last advocacy day that we had, which was last session. And so far we have more than 150 signups for this one. So we've already broken our goal there. So I'm pretty excited. Last session, we delivered 70 testimonies. Right now, we're close to 68, so we're almost beating that goal as well. We had 7 accepted edits into law. We introduced 2 bills, which actually got reintroduced this session, and then we published our first zine. And since then, we have released 6 zines. And so last session, we actually turned 25 bills into law, which was very exciting for all of our change makers that got involved. This session, the composition of the state legislature is going to be, is very different. And so the type of bills that we'll see turned into law might be a little bit less, but we are hoping to be able to stop a lot of the bad bills that have been filed this session. And so I'll let Monet just talk a little bit more about how a bill becomes a law in the future. And so, yeah, Monet, go for it.
So here's a couple of important dates. It's important to know that session does meet for about 140 days. Because of the pandemic, we had a little bit of an adjustment, as you guys can see here. It's really important to know that we're going to have a special session coming up over redistricting and the pandemic. And we'll actually touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing to keep in mind throughout this entire presentation is that the entire purpose of session is to actually establish the Texas budget for the next 2 years. And so we could literally be meeting for the entire year, even though session meets for 140 days. But if a budget does not pass, then that is how we get into special sessions.
Okay, so let's start off with some of the more influential members of the legislature. We'll start off with the government at the top. With the governor at the top. The role is filled by Greg Abbott. So it's a 4-year term. There's actually no limit for the amount of times that you can be elected governor. Part of his job is he has the power to appoint heads of state agencies and committees and groups and organizations. He has the power to sign and veto bills, and he also has the power to convene special sessions. Then we have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, also a 4-year term, no limits. Part of his job is he's able to appoint committees and assign bills to these committees, the committees that will work on it. And a committee is just like a group of people assigned to work on a specific subject within our government. He also belongs to the executive and the legislative branch, and he's able to call for interim sessions. So interim just means in between. As you saw, that we have sessions that last for 140 days. So if we ever find the need for an emergency session, he has the power to call these interim sessions. So interim, in between. So another important power that he has is he can dictate where a bill will fall on the calendar. This is a little bit of a hidden power in my mind, because where a bill falls on the calendar actually directly impacts its ability to go through the process and actually become a bill. So if he, say, didn't like a certain bill and wanted to push it to the end, there's a really strong chance that this bill wouldn't make it through session, in which case it would have to wait to be reintroduced in the next session. Then we have the Speaker of the House. This is 2-year term, which is a little bit different. It's also no term limit. He has the ability to also appoint committees and committee chairs, so the people who run these committees. He's like the mediator on the floor. He maintains the order, and he also facilitates the rules and regulations and the procedures for session. So we have this legislative chambers, the Senate and the House. So in the Senate, we have 31 members. They're all senators, 4-year terms, also no term limit. Right now, the majority is in favor of Republican. It's 18-13. This is a little bit different than the House, obviously, because there's 150 members. There's 83 Republicans currently and 67 Democrats. Just like the Speaker of the House, they only serve 2-year terms, but also consistently, they don't have a limit. So they can really be all of these people can be reelected as much as they wish, as long as they continue to run. And interesting, a really good fact to know is that because there's so many members of the House of Representatives, they're a little bit more accessible, and this will come up later. And so will the number of Republicans in the Senate. That will also come up later. So the ideas surrounding bills, or where the ideas will come from obviously a number of places. I'm going to highlight a few, one of them being the sunset process. This is a previously introduced bill being reintroduced during either next session or after being amended. So that's really all that is. It's just it's a reintroduction of an older bill. Then we have legislative advocacy groups like us, for example, and then we have citizens like you. So, and also us, I guess, technically. So really the things we can do, and I really push this and stress this, is that we can write letters, we can show up in person, and this is where the House of Reps come in. It's a lot easier to access our representatives in our area. Also petitions. Petitions show that you have support of your community on a particular issue. This is really important because reps, in my mind, there's 2 reasons why they may not particularly pay attention to something. One could be they're busy and it just doesn't fall on their plate, Another could be is that they're purposely trying to pass something by the community, and if they're never confronted, they can essentially get away with it. Okay, so how does a bill become a law? I'm going to warn you, this is a text-heavy slide. So as you can see, let's say the bill starts in the House. There's so many steps here. So basically, it's introduced, and then it can be. Actually, I should probably mention all of these steps here are opportunities for this bill to be stopped or shut down at any point. So it can actually be really, really hard to go through this process. So anyways, so a bill is introduced and then it's set for a hearing. If it's not, if it's voted down, then it has to be amended and start the process over. If it's able to move forward, it has to be read 3 times. Something that's new and is actually just new to, how do I say it? they just introduced this is majority rule. So it actually appears in 5/9, which means that we only need 18 votes to push forward a bill. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but 18 votes, and there's also 18 Republicans in the Senate. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but it's very interesting. We really only need, like, Democrats don't even have to show up for work sometimes, you know? That's what it seems like. So then if it successfully is able to be moved through the House, it will basically start this whole process over again. It's important to note, though, that if a bill is in this process and it gets amended or voted down in the House, it doesn't just start from the House, it starts all over again. So it has to start over in the Senate, and it will have to go through all of these processes. So I hope you guys are kind of seeing the theme of how difficult it can be to pass a bill, and why calendar dates really matter, because as you can see, there's so many steps. It can be a very long process. So if a bill falls at the end of the calendar, it can really mean like there's no chance for this bill to even complete the process, and therefore never become a law. So actually, this is very important to know too. If it is vetoed, so the governor actually doesn't have to sign the bill itself. He can actually make a personal stance and decide not to sign it. However, this doesn't mean that the bill is vetoed. It would actually have to go through the process of being vetoed. It's a specific process. So just because he signs it on a personal stance, it's really just him saying to his followers or his supporters that don't support this bill that, hey, I had nothing to do with this. This is me telling you that I don't support this bill. But however, it can still become a law at that point.
Thank you, Monet. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. I'll be monitoring the chat, so I'm happy to be the one that answers them in there as Monet is presenting. So the free agenda. So this is actually our legislative agenda. This is something that we came up with as a coalition with all of our change makers. It was a very participatory process. And so what we came up with after we not only surveyed, but had a values-driven conversation with all of our change makers, we actually came up with what is going to stand for freedom from violence for the F, reproductive autonomy for the R, economic opportunity for the E, and then equitable representation. And so what this basically means is that we are supporting legislation that protects quality of life and full livelihoods for all of our change makers. Specifically, we're seeking a Texas where all young women are able to reach the milestones in their lives regardless of without a life of fear of violence, whether sexually, interpersonally, or institutionally. We are also supporting legislation that fosters a Texas where all young people have the economic, social, political power and resources to define and make decisions about their bodies. We're supporting legislation that fosters a Texas full of opportunity. And we are supporting legislation that acknowledges the importance of reflecting the increasing diversity of Texas from who votes to who governs. So all of that is to say, oops, sorry, guys, my internet is a little bit slow, and every time I click, it has a little bit of a lag. So give me 1 second. Okay, so all of that is to say that under Freedom from Violence, we are pushing for immigration reform, we are pushing for gun reform, we're pushing for sexual assault and Title IX protections, and we are pushing for, under reproductive autonomy, we are fighting against all of the really bad anti-abortion bills that have been filed. We are pushing for menstrual equity. We're pushing for the ability to be to have sex ed curriculum in high schools. Under economic opportunity, we're pushing for paid sick leave and for paid family leave, and under equitable representation, we're pushing for against all of the really bad voting bills that have been filed, but also for virtual testimony options in the Capitol, as well as a fair and transparent redistricting process. So moving forward. So I talked a little bit about, or Monet talked a lot about how a bill becomes a law, but one of the things that happened this session, naturally, we are amidst a pandemic, and our representatives had all of the opportunities to be able to expand what is usually a centralized process when it comes to a bill becoming a law. They had the chance to decentralize it through virtual opportunities this session. And unfortunately, what we saw is that instead of expanding them, they restricted a lot of the options that we had. Luckily, the redistricting process, which, as you may or may not know, happens every 10 years, and this is one of the redistricting sessions, was a virtual opportunity, but that's not something that we have technically actually seen with a lot of other opportunities in both the House and the Senate. And so what we did is we took it online anyways. We created this virtual testimony template on how to record your testimony. I know we have a couple of change makers that have already testified here, so feel free to come off mute and share your experience on that. But one of the things that we've been doing with this is actually fighting against all of the bad bills, like I've mentioned, and for some of the bills that are on our legislative agenda. And we've been posting them online and tagging the legislators responsible for these bills, and all of the committee members that are actually hearing these bills in committee. And so it has been fairly successful, as I might say. We have had contact by the legislators of these bills saying that they're incredibly thankful to have the young voices here coming out and speaking against or for some of the bills that they have filed. We also have a zine, which you guys will get a chance to participate in just a second. Edith, I don't know if you want to come off mute and talk a little bit about what a zine is.
Yeah, so if you've been with us for a while now, you probably hear me talk about the zine like every single time you you engage with me. But yeah, what's just really cool about the zine is that we launched it last legislative session, as Andrea mentioned. And since then, it's been a great avenue for our change makers to really talk about the things they care about. And also, it's a way to also engage with other chapter members and keep up with what our chapters are doing like across the state. And pretty much we hit on issues that we all really care about, such as abortion, such as voting, the census recently, and among other things. And what's really cool is that we always send these to legislators, so they get to read these, and pretty much all the content made in the zine is content that's produced by like you all. So Monet's been highlighted in there. Recently, the Rice chapter's been highlighted in there. The El Paso chapter's been highlighted. Like hopefully everyone gets a chance to be highlighted at one point, which usually just depends on like how much people want to participate. So it's always open to chapter members. We collaborate with our partners, and it's always very has a lot of art in it. So like there's also a poster in every single zine that people can use. I see some posters in some of y'all's backgrounds already, which is super cool to see. Andrea collects them and everything. So it's just a really good reminder of where we stand and the things that we truly care about, and just kind of staying authentic to ourselves and what drives us to continue in our advocacy journey.
Yeah. And one of the things that these zines feature are actually youth translations, or what we like to call is understanding legalese through art and stuff. And so that's something that we'll hopefully get to do with part of this workshop later. And then the last thing is our art rapid response. And so basically what rapid response means is it's just, I mean, not to sound redundant, but it's when you respond rapidly to the bad things that are happening. And so one of the things, we have a graphic design intern that is absolutely talented. I know we have a couple of former graphic design interns on this call. And so I know that you guys have had the experience of being able to create this visually literate type of art piece that is able to communicate a lot of the advocacy that we do throughout session and beyond. So that being said, I will pass it on to Edith to kind of put us through this personal journey with the physical output.
You make it sound so cheesy. It is kind of cheesy, so just expect that. So luckily y'all get to work on the zine with me, and this is going to be our, I guess, how would you say it? I don't want to say annual, but it's like an anniversary, zine anniversary. And I'm inviting you all to join and hopefully get published. And that just really depends on you, whether you want to participate. But for this zine, in order to participate in this process, it's definitely going to be a process where we're going to be reflecting a lot. And at the end of it, it's going to have a physical output, which will be the zine. And so, yeah, I just want to thank Andrea and Monet for explaining all of the legal stuff that it takes, to know during session. But for now, to kind of get started in this process, you should have at least 3 sheets of paper. So I'll give you some time to gather these materials, but you will need 3 sheets of paper and a pen or marker, whatever you have. And then if you happen to have an envelope, that will be cool. But if you don't, that's totally okay. I think for this part, you'll just need those materials. And so if you happen to get your swag bag, I was lucky to get mine today, you can use your little Deeds Action Fund notepad. So this is what I'm going to be using. If not, you can use sticky notes or just anything, really anything. And so that's what you will need in order to be able to participate. And for the rest of this part, we're going to go ahead and it's going to be about 5 steps. So we're going to go through each step, and it just needs, basically, this is going to be like your own personal journey. You don't really have to, we're not going to like put you in breakout rooms or anything, but you are always free to share in the chat, and always leave a little bit of time to get off mute if you want to like overshare and stuff, because we like oversharing. So you can do that. But in order to get started, we'll have you grab your first piece of paper. Here's mine. And we're going to get started by writing down things we care about. So this is just to kind of get at the heart of why we do the things we do and why we care about advocacy. So you can title it Things I Care About. I'm going to title it Shit I Care About, because that's just how I talk. So I think this process will be more fun if you can add a little bit of your humor into it. A lot of this stuff we've been talking about has been really heavy. So the more humor you add, or just like the more you are yourself in this, it will make the process a lot more fun. At least I think so. So I will go ahead and model, and you can just do this alongside with me. But I'll start by saying one thing I care about a lot is access. So I feel like there are a lot of problems all the time that are just due to not having access to, information or resources, or there's just a lot of gatekeeping, like right now with the ledge, making it really hard to advocate or provide testimony, because a lot of times right now you have to be there in person. So access is one of the things I care about. And you can start putting the things you care about in the chat. Another thing I care about, which is kind of cheesy, but I care about beauty. I care about feeling beautiful and for others to feel beautiful as well. And so, body positivity. I also care about engagement. So that can either look like, people engaging even just with the content we put out in Deeds, because a lot of it provides education and information that is just really important, that we feel like we're always listening to our change makers. So all the information we put out is just information that we know y'all want to know. So like people engaging with our stuff is important to me, especially as a creator. And somebody put that they care about sex positivity. I care about that too. I know Monet mentioned she cared about that earlier. I also care about education. And, as you're writing this stuff down, you can even break it down into more stuff. Education can go to sex, sex education. It can go to general education. It could also mean teachers being paid enough to provide that education. So I think I'm kind of filling out my paper at this point. I have this much. And I'm kind of glad, pre-college, I'm kind of glad I got this piece of paper. You can write down as much as you want. But this is kind of like how your page ends up looking. And I like putting it in list form because I kind of feel like that helps us get to like the core. If you're a writer, feel free to write more, or maybe this might be a good time to kind of challenge yourself and really just like get to the point. If you are having trouble, figuring out the things you really care about, one thing I find helpful is just researching myself. So that's kind of fun sometimes. A lot of the times I do this by just going into my phone and seeing the stuff I save. I save a lot of screenshots, looking at your social media and like looking at your Instagram stories, and just kind of I think that's where stuff gets real, because a lot of the times I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening right now, and it's just like a good little archive of like how you were feeling at that time. What's really cool about this exercise is that like a lot of times we share online and it's kind of fleeting, and internet time just goes fast. And so this is a time to really sit down and write these things down and kind of immortalize them. So yeah, this is where we're at right now. Things I care about. So I hope you'll have a good amount of stuff written down, and then we're just gonna set that paper aside and move on to the next step, which I'll kick it off to Andrea.
Thanks, Edith. I definitely struggled writing my 5, but then I realized, wait, some of these intersect. So, okay, for this exercise, you'll need your other sheet of paper. Again, it can be as big or as small. It could even be just like a little scrap paper that you have next to you, whatever. And then you're also going to need a marker. Now, I don't have many markers, but I have a highlighter, so I'm going to use that. And all you're going to do, this might be a little weird, and I'm sorry, I'm going to angle this a little bit down so you can see my table. Everyone see that? And literally all you're going to do is you're just going to start scribbling. And now these scribbles can just go up and down, side to side. You can go in like little loops, whatever. It can be as big or as small as you want them to be. You're just scribbling. And as you're scribbling, you're going to start noticing, look, all of these, I don't know if you guys can see this, but all of these gaps that are forming in your scribbles. My pen, personally, is already running out of ink, just like I might be running out of energy whenever I'm organizing. And then the more I'm doing this, the more I'm realizing that this is really hard work, and it's very hard to fill in those gaps. And honestly, how much I wish that I didn't pick that big of a piece of paper so that I could fill this out, right? Just like sometimes I feel like I shouldn't bite off more than I can chew. But the more that I'm doing this, the more that I'm realizing also that if I keep going over the exact same like line, it does start filling in the gaps somewhere else. Just like if I really pour my heart into the work that I'm doing and I organize with other people, it also starts filling out those gaps. And sooner or later, especially if I have help and somebody else comes over here and fills this out for me. Claudia, do you want to come over here? I'm currently rooming with somebody else, and so maybe she can come over and fill this out for me too. But the more I'm doing this, the more I'm realizing that slowly but surely, this is actually going to be all filled up and my work will be done, at least with this piece of paper, right? But also, I need to remember and remind myself that the more that I'm working, just like the more that I'm doing this paper and like my marker is running out of ink and the page is starting to go very thin and bleeding on the other side, I also need to be able to take breaks and forgive myself for not being able to fill some of those gaps because I'm working just a little bit too hard. And maybe, just maybe, getting another marker too. Here you go. So at the end, and my ink literally dried out. So I'm just gonna stop right there because I know my limits. And I'm going to just show you guys what I have. So if everybody wants to come off their camera and show me your beautiful masterpiece of scribbles, and kind of also just come off mute and tell me some of the things that you guys were thinking about as you were doing this. Anybody feel free to come off mute.
I was just thinking, like, I only have a pen, and so sometimes you're not given the right tools, maybe. Like, it made it a lot more difficult. But I know if, like, I had, like, 2 more friends with a pen, like, this might be solid already, you know? Wouldn't need as much help.
No, you're absolutely right. And sometimes, I mean, this is a good analogy for how organizing works and how sometimes working through the legislative session works, you know? Some of us had, like, their pens literally bleed out. Some of us didn't fill in those gaps of their organizing work, or, like Monet said, weren't given the tools. Anybody else, something come up for you guys as you were doing this little exercise?
I can share. So this is my scribble. And kind of as I was thinking, I started to realize, like, oh, from the color I chose, like how I was always doing like squiggly lines, everything you do is kind of a representation of yourself, and part of your personality or beliefs go into it. Because it was kind of funny, because I started realizing this kind of looks like my hair in my profile picture. But I was also, by the tools I had access to and by my past experience, it kind of bled into what I was able to create.
That's beautiful. Finger snaps all around. Yes, exactly. Somebody else, that's exactly right. I'm so glad that you shared that. That's a wonderful, wonderful observation. Anybody else that want to share? Okay, if we have no one else, then I'll pass it back over to Edith for our next exercise.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Our next step is kind of going off of that. So for this, I know maybe you might have not, maybe you didn't have those like moments, which is totally fine. One of the things I like doing that to kind of really think about the, you know, my kind of really reflect on my feelings as things are happening, especially this time, pandemic times, post snowball times, whatever, is that like some people, I mean, obviously, like a lot of times people don't think of themselves as artists, but there's really a lot of different ways to kind of make art. And one of the things that I find personally fun to do is collect things, collect images. And I think anybody can do that. So I mentioned that earlier. And so during this exercise, I was kind of thinking of some of those obstacles that do come up that make it hard to fill in this paper. Some things that you don't even have control over. Like I was saying, with maybe you didn't have Wi-Fi at one point that made it hard for you to do that job. You know, maybe you didn't have access to certain resources. And sometimes in order to kind of portray those feelings, I like to like collect memes or collect screenshots. Or I just love collecting all the tea through that kind of stuff. And so you can do this. I encourage you all to kind of look into your phone right now and maybe see some of those relics that you didn't realize were there. For example, to kind of give a better example of what this looks like, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. I don't know why I do this, but I tend to identify more with SpongeBob memes. And so one of the things I had collected as, you know, to kind of establish how I was feeling at the time was this meme by Sandy Cheeks, where it says, "Don't you dare take the name of Texas in vain." And I collected that because at the time it was, I think it was during the snowpocalypse, where I kept seeing people, even like liberals especially, from other states, basically saying that they deserve to freeze because they're a red state and they voted for those people that are in power. So sucks for them. And I was just getting mad because it's just like, wow, like people really don't take into consideration that we're such a voter suppressed state, and they feel like saying like comments like that are like a good, what's the word? A good hot take. And it's like, no, we're a voter suppressed state, and not everybody thinks, supports that the leadership we have. And there's so many, like, especially Black and brown people, that you're just disregarding when you say stuff like that. So that's just my share. I saved that I meant to share that I don't think I got around to sharing, but I'm sharing it right now. And another one is this SpongeBob meme. This was something I did share like maybe 2 weeks ago. And it was during like, all the bad abortion bills that were just getting hearings at the time. And, that, and then plus like, all of a sudden it's not even that much of a surprise, but there was an uptick in like mass shootings. So that was a lot. And it was just, I just felt like there was a lot of, attacks on, or not even attacks, but it was just revealing more about like how this country doesn't take care of women and the LGBTQ community. So this was me at work, kind of trying to keep it together. So I feel like that embodied it. So those are just ways that I tend to, save those moments and really reflect on why I was, how I was feeling at the time. And thanks, y'all. So I encourage y'all to maybe go through and take screenshots. I feel like having those and really, I think those would be perfect to share in our zine, to just get the general feeling of what we were thinking during those events, and really share with our legislators, like, hey, like, y'all need to do something about this. And so I think that can be very powerful. So I don't know if any of y'all want to share something that came up for you that you might have saved or screenshotted, or this can also look like maybe you're a doodler, you can make doodle, maybe you write a lot. So sharing any journal entries, I think would be perfect. And later on, I'll talk about how you can submit these, but those are just some of the ways I would encourage y'all to kind of think about those obstacles and think about those feelings you were having at the time. So, like I said, a lot of stuff is heavy. So for the next step, we're gonna grab I think it's our last piece of paper. Yeah, it's our last piece of paper. So grab that last piece of paper, and this is basically gonna symbolize a release. And so for this part, I want you to start tearing this piece of paper into a lot of tiny pieces. And so this is going to be a way to kind of break down those obstacles and that hard work that we constantly have to, go through. This is a time to really celebrate our wins, because that's really important, especially when it comes to organizing and when it comes to passing bills. Because like Monet mentioned, anytime these bills can be, stopped or made to start over, and it's just like the process over and over again. So, that's just an organizing, but this can symbolize your day-to-day. It can symbolize a big project, a big event you're trying to plan. And, like this piece is for like the first testimony I've ever given. I think that's a huge win, maybe you submitted a written testimony. So I think that's also a big win. Maybe you're like me and you finally got over the anxiety of calling your legislator, because I don't like calling people I don't know. So that's a big one. I mean, I'm gonna tear off like an extra big one for that. I'm gonna put in a plug. Maybe you submit it to the zine. Another big one is, oh my God, you finally got a vacation after all this time. This is like me working, and then this is me looking forward to that vacation and finally getting there. And so, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of big wins. Maybe you remember to drink water today. All of a sudden, like it's summer and the CDC is giving more and more good news. Like, more vaccines are available. Maybe all your friends are getting vaccinated and now you can hang out with them. That's something I'm looking forward to. What else? I hope some of y'all have like some things that y'all are thinking about that really celebrates wins. Because not that I'm starting to run out, but I just can't remember right now. So if anyone wants to get off mute, feel free to do so. Congress passes the DREAM Act and Promise Act. Hell yeah. That would be huge. Maybe our menstrual equity bill will get passed. It looks like it has a good chance. Tampon tax.
Tampon tax.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'm graduating this semester, so I did a big piece for that. Just ripped it up. It's my confetti now.
We stopped the anti-abortion stuff. Yep. That would be awesome. Yeah. And then, we get some rest. Maybe we got 8 hours of sleep last night. That's a big win. My dog gets at least one walk that day. Her ears perked up when I said that. Yeah, so now I have like this big pile of wins and things I can celebrate. And so, yeah, we have like our celebratory confetti, because I'm pretty sure that's how confetti's made. We really have to take time to celebrate those wins. And sometimes you can celebrate those wins with others, and that's also just as rewarding. So I hope y'all have, I don't know if y'all want to show me y'all celebratory paper, but this is what I have. And you could always break that down into even more pieces of paper. Sometimes like this could represent, like I was saying, maybe something big, like finally graduating and just all the things you had to, really get past to finally graduate, whether it be midterms, just getting enough to eat every day, remembering that kind of stuff, and really taking time to take care of yourself. Oh, Arkansas government vetoed the anti-trans bill. See, everybody get out, everybody show me your celebratory confetti right now. Thanks, y'all. And I will kick it off for the next step. I will kick it off to Andrea.
Yes, thank you, Edith. So for this next one, we're going to do a little personal. I love that, Jess. You're having way too much fun. Good. That's exactly the point of this. Okay, so for this next one, it'll be a personal memento. And so the idea for this is that when an issue really matters to you, you're going to give your time and essentially a huge part of yourself to that cause, right? And so I'll model by sharing something that means a lot to me. And it seems pretty small and a little bit insignificant, but it is definitely something that is a really big meaning to me. And one of the reasons that I got very involved in advocacy. So I have this SB4 pin. And so SB4 is otherwise known as the Show Me Your Papers bill. It was a piece of legislation that unfortunately passed into law in the 2 sessions ago now? And so basically this bill is one of the bills that actually got me very involved in advocacy. At the time when this bill was being debated on and stuff, I had my experience with politics was very, very limited. It was actually when I had recently added international politics into my major. And so when I was interning for a state Senate office, I just found out about how a bill becomes a law and all of these things that you guys have learned here. And so at the time, SB4 was being proposed, and I was just like, this is bullshit. I'm sorry for using that word. But, and so I was just like, I need to do absolutely everything in my power to like stop this thing from happening. And just like I wrote with my little paper and stuff, I dedicated absolutely every part of me into this bill. It was the first time I came to the Capitol. I actually went with United We Dream, which is a really big national organization that works on immigrant rights. If you don't know them, definitely go follow them. But then, so what we did is we we spent the night in this like little church because they were like asking for advocates from all over the nation to go and like testify against this bill and also stand up and like go into the halls of power and like stand against this bill, right? And so what we did is we brought in this like big banner that was basically talking about how this bill was just absolutely terrible, right? And when we were there, the state rangers, or are they rangers? I'm not entirely sure what the offices are, but I'm pretty sure they're rangers. They basically like pulled me out, and I had never ever experienced like this like level of violence for literally just holding a piece of paper in the Capitol. And so they pulled me and a couple of our friends out, my friends now, out, and there's actually a video on YouTube for it. So if you want to look it up, there's definitely a video there. But anyways, and so when I came back with this really big like spark in my heart that is something that continues to get ignited after every session. And so what is the video called? I think it's called United We Dream SB4. I'm not entirely sure, but you can find it on YouTube. And so anyways, when I came back, me and a couple of friends that were a part of that, actually a couple of these friends are on this call right now, we started this organization at our campus called Education Not Deportation. And we decided that like we were going to use absolutely everything in our power to be able to educate people about like what this bill does and how bad it is, and also just really stand for immigrant rights, especially for Dreamers. And so afterwards, we organized a couple of events, some press conferences. We riled up a bit some of our school members as well as some of the faculty that was a part of the university. And so at the end of the day, one of the things that SB4 did is it allowed campus police to ask students for their papers and stuff, which is absolutely terrible, because that like you're stopping somebody from like getting an education just out of fear, right? And so what we did is we wrote to the dean of the students, and we asked them or the president of the school, we asked her to take a stance against this, and make sure that UTEP, which is my alma mater, was declared a sanctuary campus. And the president of the school didn't want to do that. And so when I graduated, instead of shaking her hand, I wore my pin and I did this. And so there's a picture of me with the dean reaching out and me pointing at my pin. And it was one of the proudest moments that I've had, because I feel like it's such a symbol of activism to be able to do that and have it recorded also in pictures and stuff. And so anyways, that is my memento. That is my story for one of the reasons that I got very involved in advocacy, and something that continues to inspire me to keep doing this work. And so what I encourage you is to find a memento, find something that really means a lot to you, something that is connected to the advocacy that you're doing, and just think about it. Just think about how is it that this idea that matters so much to you actually represent all of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into your advocacy. And while you're doing that, also please take a picture of it, because you might not see it for a while because of the next thing that we're going to ask you to do. But definitely, if you feel comfortable with it, feel free to come off mute and share a little bit of your story if you already have that memento. If not, feel free to submit it to us. Edith has been mentioning a lot about how we want to include this in the zine. And so basically what we're planning on doing with all of your guys' collaboration today is we want to create a zine that is very reflective of all of the work that you guys do, all of the passions that you guys have, and why it is that we are working really hard to be able to stop or push forward some of the advocacy that we want to see and some of the change that we want to see in the halls of power that is actually reflective of our beautiful and diverse state. And so That being said, the zine is going to be a what I like to call it the Mercury retrograde zine, because we want it to be a zine where we are able to discuss all of the bullshit that has happened, whether it's COVID, whether it's the snowpocalypse, all of the bills that have been filed, all the January 6th taking of the Capitol, all of the shootings that have happened for all of our Black friends, suppression, everything that has happened. And we want to just compile it and really just make it a beautiful piece of art, collaborative art, where we are able to talk about what is it that's really inspiring us and firing us up. And so that being said, I will pass it over to Edith to kind of finish us off with this little workshop.
Yeah, so if you're having trouble thinking of a personal memento, you could always use a photograph, and it could be a sticker, it could be, I don't know, maybe a concert ticket. It can literally be anything, as long as you can put it in an envelope. But it has to be the real thing. So you can't take a picture of it and put that in the envelope. It has to be the real thing, because then that means more. So I don't have my personal memento, but that's okay. Everything I have is in storage right now. So, but I know what I would put in there. So if you don't have it right now, that's totally okay. But for this next part, if you have an envelope, I found one that my dad uses for his taxes. So I'm gonna use that. Hopefully he doesn't need it. And I'm gonna put my hypothetical personal memento, as well as my celebratory confetti, and the should I care about is gonna go in there. And also my hard work is gonna go in here. And so everything is gonna go in there, and take a good look at it, because we're gonna close it. And this is gonna serve as like a little time capsule. And I hope you won't open it until next session, but I think it would be really cool if you keep this time capsule of your thoughts and feelings and, aspirations and fears and work and celebrations, and hopefully open it next session and see if those things still align. Maybe you'll see that some of the things you really cared about ended up changing, or maybe not changing, which is totally fine. There's just like a reminder that there's always work to do, but there's always rest to take. And so it's going to be your little time capsule. You can decorate this. You can mail it to yourself. You can hide it. I'm probably going to put it by my desk, as I put most of my envelopes and stationery stuff. But I think it'll be like a good reminder of just like what is at the core of the work that you do. So yeah, make sure you close it tight. We're not going to see it. So I encourage you to keep this until next session, because I think it would be really cool to look at. And maybe before you close it tight, you want to take a picture of some of the things you worked on. So real quick. And you could just take a picture of your scribbles, which mean a whole other, they have like a complete other meaning. It could be a picture of your personal memento. So yeah, keep those things, take a picture, and then seal it up. And now you have your little time capsule. So, oh wait, did you share your screen? So that is pretty much it for this exercise. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope y'all keep this somewhere safe where you can reference back to it later on.
Awesome. Thank you, Edith. So that's really it for us for today. I hope that you guys are able to join us for the rest of the week. We do want to close out with a little bit of a reflections moment. So we just kind of want to know what is one thing that you learned about yourself in this workshop, or the ledge process, or how art impacts your advocacy, and how it is that you are going to take this back to your communities to create change. And so feel free to drop it in the chat. I also want to invite 2 people to come off mute and share if you feel inclined to do so. And I'm happy to pick on people if you want me to. You could add a little bit, you could add to your confetti. I unmuted myself and shared.
Yeah, I want to say this was awesome. I love like the slides you guys have. They're beautiful slides, super engaging, and the activities were really fun. I think like it just like talking about the activities, like I don't know, I was in a day of Zoom classes, so this was kind of nice to do towards like the end of my day, and it's just like a great way to reflect, especially with like how like things are going like with the pandemic that happened, and then also like I don't know, there's like hope for the future with like vaccines and everything. So it was really nice to like kind of do this like reflective activity and just like be with y'all in this environment.
Thank you, Kriti, for sharing. One more person. We have time for one more person. And if you feel more comfortable to just share it in the chat, feel free to do that as well.
I can share. I also really like this session. I loved how interactive it was. And it also made me realize, although I've done a lot of great work already, there's still a lot more I can do in the future and a lot more change, and I can have a lot more influence on the process than I previously thought. So I'll definitely be looking for more ways to get involved, not only with deeds, but on my own as well.
Yay! That makes me so happy to hear. I'm so glad. And if there's any way that we can serve as mentors or facilitators in your experience finding the advocacy, your type of advocacy, feel free to always reach out. We're happy to help. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I love some of the people that are sharing in the chat. I hope if it's okay with you, I'm happy to read out some of the things as well. You can just react. I think that there's an option on your Zoom to just do kind of like a thumbs up or something if you'd like me to share out loud some of the things that you have in the chat.
I'd like to share mine. So I wrote that you don't have to be an outgoing warrior to facilitate change. And I say that because like when I hear your story, Andrea, I'm like, can I really see myself in that position? Like some of that just isn't in my character, you know, but then I was able to find like a lot of solace in like writing my testimonies this time. You know, I was able to really like, I do better when I have like social anxiety. So I do better when there's like no one in front of me and I can just free flow and express my feelings. And I was able to do that with my testimonies this semester and this session. And, you know, I was a little disappointed that we didn't have more opportunity to be involved in session this year. They, you know, made it so like not every bill would be heard. And there wouldn't be a lot of virtual testimonies. And that was really disappointing to me because I felt like this was like my time to really shine. Like I may not be great at, you know, starting, you know, a protest or something like that, but I'm definitely good at expressing my feelings on paper for people to read. And so that was something I really learned. It was, you know, really difficult feeling like, oh crap, I'm not that outgoing. How am I going to make change, you know? So being able to use my ability to write was amazing. It was very freeing for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Monet. And as somebody that has seen you grow, I am never, like, I'm always in awe at your amount of growth and stuff from the beginning of your advocacy to now. And so I'm very, very proud of you. Okay, so I think I saw Thomas put your thumb up. If that's okay, I'm happy to read it. Okay, cool. So he says, I learned how many people are passionate about these issues, which is a real comfort since I live in a pretty conservative area. So I feel really isolated in my beliefs a lot of the time, and I'm hoping to carry that passion forward. Good. Yay! Well, we're extremely happy always to help out in your type of advocacy, whether it's giving pointers or connecting you to people and stuff. We're always happy to help. Okay, guys. Well, that's all the time that we have. Oh,
I have
what's
one
up,
more
Bede?
thing that we're like, submit, and we're like, how do you even submit? So if you want to submit any of the things you wrote down, scribbled, shared, pictures you gathered, anything at all, you can email them to me. I dropped my email in the chat. I think if you want to share things that you wrote down on paper, you could always scan them. So I know if you have an iPhone, you can use your notes app to scan it, and that will give like a better image for me to use. So please feel free to do that. Just email them to me, and I think if you're able to scan, that will be much better than a photograph. So that's my only tidbit.
Yeah, and for those that might not have access to the chat, Edith's email is Edith, EDITH, at deedsnotwords.com. Perfect. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you. I'm glad a lot of you guys have learned about advocacy burnout. That is something that I still struggle with. And so very proud of you guys. You're already one step closer to good organizing than how I was back in the day.
Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all. I hope to see you guys throughout the week too. So feel free to sign up for our other sessions. Bye, guys.